Hi everyone, welcome to the Evolving Philo Lab. My name is Praveen Karanth, and today I would like to share with you some of the exciting research that's going on in the lab. The lab basically uses phylogenies to address questions in ecology, evolution, and behavior, as well as conservation biology. So we use uh, molecular data to generate, sorry, I need to get my pointer there. So we use molecular data to generate phylogenies and then use phylogenies to address questions in ecology, evolution, behavior, as well as conservation biology. And we use a range of taxa to address some of these exciting questions. Uh, Invertebrates, vertebrates, plants, all kinds of things. Um, so let me go over some of the exciting research that's going on in the lab. Um, but before that, let me tell you about the applications of molecular phylogeny. Phylogenies can be used to understand biogeography and phylogeography of species. It's been extensively used to understand uh, speciation as well as species delimitation. We have also used phylogenies to understand co-speciation between host and parasite. We've used it to look at community ecology. It can also be used to understand developmental biology, trait evolution, molecular evolution, and lineage diversification. So we have been working in pretty much all of these areas except molecular evolution and developmental biology. Um, but the main focus of the lab is biogeography, and we are interested in understanding the origin and evolution of Indian biota. How was the biota in India assembled? Where did they come from? So basically origin and affinity of Indian biota. After they got into India, what really happened? What are the historical processes that shaped their diversification and distribution? And we use phylogenies to understand this, and this area is called historical biogeography. Let me give you an example of the kind of work that we do in the lab, and I'll just use a single example because there's just so many groups that we are working on and so many different kinds of questions we are looking at. So let me just concentrate on one group and show you the kind of workflow. Um, uh, we have been working on langurs of India for a very long time. If you look at the different species of langurs, you have Hanuman langur uh, and a whole bunch of other species in India, and then you have langurs in Southeast Asia also. Now, what's interesting is Hanuman langur was for the longest time classified under genus Semnopithecus. So all of this was Semnopithecus. And the other langurs of Indian subcontinent, Nilgiri langur and purple-faced langur in Sri Lanka, along with the langurs of northeast, were classified in the genus Trachypithecus. So this is what the classification looks like. Hanuman langur in Semnopithecus, with the rest of the langurs of India, along with langurs of Southeast Asia in Trachypithecus. However, when we did the molecular phylogeny, we found something very different. But before that, I would like to point out that this raises an interesting point, and that is, you have Hanuman langur all over India and Sri Lanka, and you have Nilgiri langur and purple-faced langur in Southwest India and Sri Lanka, which are related to Southeast Asian langurs. So there's disjunction in the distribution in the species classified in Trachypithecus. So Nilgiri langur and purple-faced langur are classified in Trachypithecus, whereas Hanuman langur in Semnopithecus. So how do we explain this disjunction? So this kind of disjunction between elements from Southeast Asia and Western Ghats and the wet zone of Sri Lanka has been noted by many authors, and you see it in a number of groups. One possible reason for this kind of disjunction is that much of India was covered in evergreen rainforest, and with the aridification of India, the wet zone elements got isolated, and so you basically have this kind of a distribution. However, when we built the phylogeny, we realized that the wet zone elements were actually more closely related to Hanuman langur, that is Semnopithecus. So there's something very interesting going on here. These elements are not related to Southeast Asian species. So in fact, there has been a single dispersal of langurs into India, and then followed by diversification into dry and wet zone elements. In fact, we see this with a lot of other groups that we have worked down. Here are some examples from lizards, from geckos, from skinks, and so on. Basically, we see a single dispersal into India and diversification. So we call this endemic radiation, because within India there are many species that have radiated from a single common ancestor. The same thing we see with plants, and we have been working on plants for quite some time now. Okay, so this is very interesting because this looks like what we call an island radiation. Typically islands, you see this kind of a situation where there's a single species that gets to the island, and because the islands are isolated, that's lineage then radiates. In fact, Indian subcontinent is like an island. It is surrounded by high mountain ranges in the north, and in the south by the ocean. Climatically also, India is isolated from the rest of Asia, so it is like an island. So we are seeing many examples of island radiation. And then we have the species in northeast, golden langur and cap langur, and turns out these two species are probably hybrid lineage, because one set of markers puts them with Semnopithecus, the other set with Trachypithecus. So this is something very exciting that we discovered during our work. Obviously, the byproduct of a lot of this work is systematics, and we have discovered some very exciting patterns. One such pattern is that of this interesting lizard called Brachiosaura, which was assigned to a separate genus. Turns out it is a Calotus. It is nested well within Calotus. It's a ground-dwelling species, whereas Calotus, as you know, is not completely ground-dwelling. So we had to revise the taxonomy. Similarly, we have another example of Hemidactylus, which was thought to be a Hemidactylus, but turns out it is not nested within Hemidactylus, and we had to revisit the earlier classification of this group. Within Hanuman langurs, obviously, these two species from India and Sri Lanka are nested within Hanuman langur, so they should be placed in Semnopithecus. And in fact, now we have been using something called integrative taxonomy to understand the taxonomy of this group, and we have multiple lines of evidence that suggest that in fact the so-called Hanuman langur consists of multiple species. And we have multiple lines of evidence to show that the so-called Hanuman langur at least consists of 4 species. So in the process, we have described many new species. This is just a small list. So this is an example of the kind of work that we do in the lab. We are also interested in looking at drivers of diversification, how climate change and past geological changes result in diversification of various groups. We are also interested in host pathogen or parasite coevolution and co-speciation. Done a lot of work on that. Of course, the role of hybridization in speciation. We are also looking at genomic changes associated with species evolution, as well as impact of anthropogenic changes on population genetics. So these are some of the kind of research that we do, and if you think that this is something that excites you, do write to me. Thank you.